still shut. There might be one now. It's a super goal.
What if the line between glory and heartbreak was no wider than a single moment? In archery, victory can be decided by less than a millimeter. In sprinting, by a fraction of a second. But in football, sometimes the difference between becoming immortal and becoming unforgettable for the wrong reason lasts only a few seconds. For Roberto Baggio, that moment lasted 27 seconds. 27 seconds that would echo through football history forever. Long before that moment in Pasadena, Roberto Baggio was already something rare in football. Not just a player, but a poet. With his elegant touch, delicate dribbling, and vision that seemed to exist one step ahead of everyone else on the field, he played the game like an artist painting on grass. Fans called him Il Divin Codino, the divine ponytail. The nickname came from the iconic ponytail that swayed behind him every time he glided across the pitch, but it also captured something deeper, a sense that his talent was almost divine. Italy had produced many great players, but few carried the same mystical aura as Baggio. And yet behind that elegance lived a quiet sadness. His eyes often seemed distant, reflective, as if he understood something about football that others did not. Some would later call him the greatest tragic hero the game has ever known, because while Baggio possessed the brilliance of a legend, fate would repeatedly place him on the cruelest edge between triumph and sorrow. By the early 1990s, he had already become one of Italy's biggest stars. Serie A was then the most competitive league in the world, filled with the greatest players of the era, and Baggio stood among them as one of its brightest figures. When Italy hosted the 1990 World Cup, hopes were sky high. Playing on home soil, the Azzurri dreamed of lifting the trophy in front of their own people. Baggio shone during that tournament, showcasing flashes of genius that hinted at the superstar he would soon become. But Italy's dream ended painfully in the semifinal against Diego Maradona's Argentina. It was a defeat that left the nation heartbroken, yet it also marked the beginning of Roberto Baggio's rise to global superstardom. 4 years later, the World Cup arrived in a place that seemed almost foreign to football's traditions, the United States. Soccer was still searching for its identity in America, competing with sports like basketball and American football for attention. But the 1994 World Cup would change that, and at the center of the story stood Roberto Baggio. He arrived in the United States as the reigning Ballon d'Or winner, carrying the expectations of an entire nation on his shoulders. Italy was desperate to return to the summit of world football, and Baggio was the man chosen to lead them there. The squad, managed by Arrigo Sacchi, was built around the powerful core of AC Milan, a team that had just conquered Europe. On paper, the Azzurri looked strong, disciplined, and ready for greatness. But the tournament began in the worst possible way. Italy's opening match against Ireland ended in a disappointing defeat. The team looked slow, disconnected, and strangely lifeless. Back home in Italy, criticism exploded. Newspapers questioned Sacchi's tactics and wondered whether the team had lost its identity. Then came the second match, and disaster struck. Just 21 minutes into the game against Norway, goalkeeper Gianluca Pagliuca was sent off with a red card. Sacchi had to sacrifice a player to bring on a substitute goalkeeper. The player he chose to remove from the field was Roberto Baggio. As Baggio walked off the pitch, his face revealed a mixture of disbelief and anger. It was a moment that symbolized the growing tension between him and his manager. Italian media would spend years dissecting that decision. Fortunately for Italy, another player named Baggio, Dino Baggio, scored the winning goal that day. But Roberto Baggio, the divine ponytail himself, had still not scored in the tournament. In the final group match against Mexico, Italy could only manage a draw. When the group stage ended, the Azzurri had barely survived with 4 points, advancing to the knockout round as one of the tournament's best third-place teams. The dream was hanging by a thread. And yet sometimes, greatness appears precisely when hope begins to fade. Because when the knockout stage arrived, Roberto Baggio finally awakened. Italy faced Nigeria in the round of 16, and the match seemed destined to become a national catastrophe. Nigeria led 1-0, and the clock was running down. With just minutes remaining, Italy stood on the brink of elimination. Then came the moment that changed everything. In the 88th minute, Roberto Baggio received the ball inside the penalty area. One touch, one quick strike. The ball rolled into the net. Italy was alive again. The match went into extra time, and in the 100th minute, Baggio stepped forward once more. A calm penalty, A decisive finish. In the space of 12 minutes, he had dragged Italy back from the edge of the abyss. The divine ponytail had returned. From that moment onward, the tournament began to transform into Roberto Baggio's World Cup. In the quarterfinal against Spain, he scored a dramatic late goal that sealed Italy's victory. Then came the semifinal against Bulgaria, a team powered by the brilliant Hristo Stoichkov. Once again, Baggio delivered. In the 20th minute, he danced past defenders and finished with surgical precision. 5 minutes later, he struck again, a perfect shot across goal that doubled Italy's lead. With those 2 goals, he carried Italy into the World Cup final. By the time the tournament reached its climax, Roberto Baggio had become more than just a footballer in America. For many American fans who were discovering soccer for the first time, he was the face of the sport itself. Elegant, charismatic, unmistakable with that flowing ponytail. Even in a country used to high-scoring games, Baggio proved that football could create heroes through moments of pure beauty. Without him, Italy might never have reached the final. But fate, as it so often does in football, had prepared something else entirely, because the final in Pasadena would not be remembered for goals. It would be remembered for a silence, and for a single shot that would travel not into the net, but into history. The 1994 World Cup final was played on July 17th at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, under the blazing California sun. Nearly 95,000 fans filled the stadium, while millions more watched around the world. On one side stood Brazil, chasing their 4th world title. On the other stood Italy, a nation built on defensive mastery and tactical discipline. At the center of it all were 2 of the tournament's brightest stars, Romario of Brazil and Roberto Baggio of Italy. Yet the match itself unfolded like a chess match between 2 cautious giants. Italy, led by captain Franco Baresi, defended with relentless focus. Brazil searched for space but rarely found it. For 90 minutes, neither team could break the deadlock. Extra time came and went. Still no goals. For the first time in World Cup history, the final would be decided by a penalty shootout. The tension inside the Rose Bowl was almost unbearable. One by one, players stepped forward. Brazil's Marcio Santos missed the opening kick, and moments later Franco Baresi, returning heroically from injury, also sent his shot over the bar. But then Brazil began to find their rhythm. Romario scored. Branco scored. Dunga scored. Italy struggled to keep pace. When Daniel Massaro's penalty was saved by Brazilian goalkeeper Claudio Taffarel, the pressure fell onto one man, Roberto Baggio. If he missed, Brazil would be world champions. And if anyone in Italy could handle that moment, it was him. Baggio was known as a calm and reliable penalty taker. Throughout his career, he had converted countless spot kicks with confidence and precision. Millions of Italian fans watching around the world believed he would score. He placed the ball carefully on the penalty spot. For a moment, the stadium seemed to hold its breath. 27 seconds passed from the moment he stepped forward to the moment the ball left his foot. Then the shot rose higher and higher until it sailed over the crossbar. Brazil were champions. Just like that, the dream was over. The players in yellow exploded with joy, celebrating their 4th World Cup victory. But a few yards away, another image was being carved into football history. Roberto Baggio stood motionless beneath the scorching California sun, hands on his hips, staring into the distance. It was not the image of a villain. It was the image of a man carrying the weight of an entire nation in a single silent moment. That photograph would become one of the most powerful images ever captured in sport. Because sometimes the most unforgettable moments in football do not belong to the winners, but to those who endure the pain of defeat. Years later, Baggio would speak about that moment. He once said, "I rarely miss penalties unless the goalkeeper saves them. I never aim too far wide. That day, I felt calm before I struck the ball, but it went over the bar. It was the worst moment of my career. Even today, I still dream about it." Some believed it was simply a mistake. Others believed it was fate. Baggio himself remembered something unusual. Before the tournament, a Buddhist spiritual teacher he respected had told him that he would face great trials during the competition. Looking back, Baggio wondered if that final moment had been the challenge foretold. More than 30 years have passed since that day in Pasadena. Many people barely remember the exact details of Brazil's victory. The missed penalties by Baresi and Massaro are rarely discussed. But the image of Roberto Baggio standing alone under the sun remains unforgettable. It became a symbol of the fragile nature of greatness in sport, because the distance between hero and heartbreak can be incredibly small. In Baggio's case, it lasted exactly 27 seconds. 27 seconds that transformed a national hero into a tragic figure in the eyes of many fans. Yet what made Roberto Baggio special was not that moment of failure, but what came after it. Instead of running from the memory, he chose to confront it. 4 years later, at the 1998 World Cup in France, Italy once again faced pressure in their opening match against Chile. The Azzurri needed a goal late in the game to avoid defeat. Once again, the responsibility fell on Roberto Baggio. Once again, he stepped up to the penalty spot. This time, the divine ponytail was gone, but the composure remained. Baggio struck the ball calmly into the net. Redemption had arrived. His career would continue for several more years, and even after the heartbreak of 1994, he scored over 100 more goals before retiring. But Roberto Baggio's legacy was never defined solely by numbers or trophies. In fact, many managers of the era struggled to understand him. When Juventus began building their future around Alessandro Del Piero, Baggio was forced to leave Turin. At AC Milan, he reunited with Arrigo Sacchi, but the relationship remained complicated. Another coach once made a comment that perfectly captured the conflict between Baggio's artistry and the evolving modern game. He said, "In modern football, there is no room for poets." But Roberto Baggio proved that statement wrong, because the poet was also a warrior. After the tragedy of Pasadena, he continued to fight, play, and inspire until the end of his career. His story became something more than football. After retiring, Baggio stepped away from the spotlight and embraced a quieter life inspired by Buddhist philosophy and humanitarian work. In 2009, he became the first footballer ever to receive the World Peace Award for his contributions to peace and charity. In many ways, football had been only one chapter of his journey. His autobiography carried a poetic title, "A Goal in the Sky." To many fans, that phrase inevitably recalls the ball flying into the sky in 1994. But for Baggio himself, the meaning was deeper. It was not about the missed penalty. It was about the idea that football can open a door to something greater than victory or defeat. And perhaps that is why the story of Roberto Baggio still resonates today. Because football is not only about trophies, it is about human moments, moments of brilliance, moments of heartbreak, moments that remind us how fragile greatness can be. On that July afternoon in 1994, the ball may have flown into the sky, but the legend of Roberto Baggio flew straight into the hearts of millions of fans around the world. And in the end, perhaps that is a different kind of victory. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with fellow football fans. See you in the next story, where we explore another unforgettable moment from the beautiful game.